On November 10, 1955, a crew member of the merchant ship Tuvalu spotted something unusual 600 miles, nearly 1,000 kilometers, off its shipping route. It was a ship, a half-submerged ship that was listing to one side and drifting on the ocean surface. They boarded it and found it completely deserted. Not a single passenger or crew member in sight. And the ship, by design, was considered almost impossible to sink. 5 weeks prior to the sighting, at dawn on October 3, 1955, the Joyita departed from the port of Apia, Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands. The journey was only 270 miles, about 435 kilometers, expected to take just 2 days. It never made it to its destination. On board were 25 people, 16 crew members and 9 passengers, including a government doctor carrying surgical instruments for an emergency operation. The departure had already been delayed by a day due to a faulty engine coupling. When the ship finally set sail, only one of its 2 engines was operational. At the time, no one considered it a serious problem. Joyita had an unusual design. Its cedar hull was lined with cork, making it nearly impossible to sink, even if it suffered severe damage. On October 6, the day after its expected arrival, the coastal station on Tokelau reported that the ship had never arrived. No distress signal had ever been received. One of the largest search operations in the history of the South Pacific was launched, covering more than 100,000 square miles, that is roughly 260,000 square kilometers of the Pacific Ocean. After several days, the search was called off. Joyita had simply vanished, and no one had ever seen or heard from them again. 5 weeks later, the ship was found 600 miles off its intended course, that is nearly 1,000 kilometers from where it was supposed to be. It was leaning heavily to one side, with part of the deck underwater, and yet it was still afloat. What the rescue crew found was just as strange as the disappearance itself. The ship's logbook, sextant, chronometer, and all of its navigational instruments were gone, disappeared. What is even more unsettling, all 3 clocks on board had stopped at 10:25. The radio was switched on and tuned to the international distress frequency 2182 kHz, but unfortunately, because of a faulty installation, its effective range was only about 3 kilometers. Close enough to attempt a distress call and yet not far enough for anyone to hear it. All 3 lifeboats, alongside an additional rescue boat, were missing. Yet the crew's personal belongings and valuable equipment had all been left behind. For tons of cargo, along with medical supplies, had disappeared, while the doctor's medical bag remained on the ship with 4 bloody bandages inside the bag. Someone had been injured. But enough time had passed to suggest this wasn't the result of a sudden disaster. Strangest of all, Captain Thomas Dusty Miller had been the captain of this ship for many years. He knew that, because of its cork-lined construction, the Joyita was almost unsinkable. Even 5 weeks later, half destroyed, it was still floating. So why would an experienced captain order everyone to abandon a ship in the middle of the ocean that was almost impossible to sink, and climb into small boats? The official investigation in Apia in 1956 failed to reach definitive proof. Over the decades, several theories have emerged. The first one being a pirate attack, but there were no signs of a struggle, no bullet holes, and the ship's route did not pass through any known pirate waters, making it highly unlikely. There was the idea of insurance fraud for an insurance payout, but that fails to explain why would the captain sacrifice the lives of 24 other people and make himself disappear for a payout. The most likely and widely accepted theory is that a corroded pipe in the engine room caused a slow flooding during the night while the crew were sleeping. As the ship gradually began to lean in the darkness, the crew may have panicked and were unable to judge how serious the damage really was. They could have abandoned the ship in its small boats, never realizing that if they stayed aboard, they likely would have survived. No bodies were ever found. Not a single lifeboat was ever recovered. Out of the 25 people who disappeared from the ship Joyita that night, only 6 were ever officially declared dead. To this day, the descendants of the passengers and crew, many of them are from the Tokelau Islands, continue to ask the New Zealand government for a formal recognition of what happened to their ancestors, more than half a century after that mysterious night. The Joyita was found, but the answer to what happened to her crew remains lost, just like all of the people who we lost with her. What do you think happened on that night? Was there a pirate attack, a corroded pipe, or did something unexplainable happen? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next one.